Okay, I am joined today by Dave Fischer and Lera Kooper, co-owners of Accountability Services, a local advisory and strategic planning tax firm in the greater Puget Sound region. So thank you guys so much for being with me, and we're gonna launch into some of the stuff that they do because it is not just boring taxes. We wanna start by talking about the old model because when most people think about taxes, accounting, it's generally not positive, right? It's kind of this necessary evil of doing business, but your model is a little bit different, and we'll get to it, but let's start by just kind of addressing the old model.
Sure. So the old model, in a nutshell, really is here's my stuff in a shoebox, maybe digitally now, and let me know how much I owe. I'll see you next year. It's very transactional, very low value, besides the fact that you're remaining compliant with the government authorities. But there's nothing proactive about it.
Yeah.
And so the value stops there, and typically clients are wanting more and just don't know how to ask for it.
Yeah, and it's always a looking back activity, right? Always looking back to just report what happened, which is an essential a part of what we do and what clients need, of course, but it stops there. It is a transaction. It's reactive. It's historical, looking to the past.
Yeah. But you guys have a differentiating approach, which we talked about when we were kind of doing the pre-planning, and there's 3 bullet points that we listed out. So let's start with the first bullet point of compliance, right? So you guys take it from there and talk about what you do in the compliance arena.
Well, you put it perfectly. The compliance really is a necessary evil, something nobody really wants to do. It's typically very stress-inducing, and so we recognize it has to be done. But the layer that we added on top of that is, okay, we realize this is a stressful experience. Let's take it a little bit proactively. Let's look at your year during the tax year and see how much you're going to owe. What is your business activity or your individual finances telling us? What's the story of the numbers? And that's really just the next level that gives people peace of mind. But that top tier level that really brings the most value and that we enjoy applying with clients the most is that strategic approach. And that's, okay, we have the compliance down, we have the story of the numbers. Now what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
You know, how do we use the information and resources we have to actually get you closer to your goals rather than just reporting what already happened?
Yeah. And those are actually 3 service offerings that you guys have, correct? So you have a compliance service offering, a proactive service offering, and then a strategic service offering. So would you break that down just a little more in depth, how your clients come to
so
you?
we have the compliance, as you mentioned, which is more the traditional model. And we do a great job with filing tax returns and doing monthly accounting for business clients. Then above that, we have our proactive, which is going to be some more planning meetings, some tax planning meetings, to kind of get an understanding of what's happening during the tax year, as Lera mentioned. You know, sometimes just the knowledge is power, right? And just knowing what's happening. And it's a lot easier to impact when you can see it happening during the year. It's a lot more difficult after the fact, right? To make an impact, and that's our goal. And then that strategic level is additional layers of planning, and we have some additional financial planning and analysis resources to build out some, you know, OKRs or KPIs for business to really start to say, what are your goals? And then what is the action plan we can put together to impact what you're doing on a day-to-day basis to reach those goals? So that's the strategic level.
Okay. Well, and you were just telling me before we started rolling that each of you were going for another certification this weekend. And the intent behind that, just touch on that briefly, if you would, the intent behind why keep going for more and more and more? Like what is the what will that bring to the table, I guess?
So I think, you know, every business has a life cycle, right? You're a startup, you get started, you get rolling, you get revenue, you get profitability, and you're in that mature state, and then there's an exit. And that's a factor that a lot of businesses don't
That's
really
where we
think
live.
about. Right, yeah, and it's a huge part of the business cycle that's often not thought about. From an early stage, what is the exit plan? Is there a long-term plan? Is it a short-term plan? So we went to get our certification to be CVAs, so Certified Valuation Analysts, to be able to get a better understanding of what the metrics and drivers of that end number are, that price when you exit out.
Yeah.
What is that going to look like? What are the drivers there so that we can actually use some of our strategic planning tools to impact value along the way?
Yeah.
So whether that's a 1-year plan, hopefully longer, 3-10-year plan, but I think it's important to know what those drivers are,
Yeah.
so that it can be a part of your goals, your action plan. It's really helpful when you kind of know where you're headed. And so I think providing some basic metrics or industry analysis or competitor analysis or transactions that have actually already happened, what those look like really can impact what you're doing in your business today, even if you're not exiting for a few years.
Yeah. Do you find, this is an off-script question, but do you find that the majority of business owners have kind of put off thinking about the exit or planning for the exit?
Yeah. And that's honestly the most sad thing to see is people, they put their blood, sweat, tears, free time into this business, and then to not think about the exit is really, it's really detrimental. And so it's sad to see them put all this effort, their life's work, their life's investment, and then just close up shop because they're burnt out. And we see that so often in our own industry as well as others, where it's just, I'm done now, close the doors, and they don't get any return on that investment. And so for us, I mean, the purpose of all of our services is to help our clients get the most out of what they have, whether they're an individual or a business owner, whether we have the answers or we refer them to someone we trust. We want to be that resource because we realize it takes a village to really make a success out of it. And so part of that exit planning strategy is just creating that awareness and enhancing that clarity for the business owner of what goes into it and what their options even are.
Yeah, and I think, we work with a lot of small businesses. Some are one owner and they're the sole employee, they run everything, right? There can still be value there. And so sometimes I think that they don't know, if I'm the only person, there's no value in this business that I have. So there's some planning, to do there. And I think if somebody wants to scale, understand what that looks like as well. I think we find a lot of small businesses, they don't know that there's value at all, potentially. Some know there's a value and it's a kind of a back of the napkin or I heard from my friend type thing. So I think just giving more clarity around the numbers and exposure can help them then start to think about it more. So I don't know if they're putting it off, they have no basis to start with.
Yeah.
Right? So I think if they have a starting point, then it kind of creeps in their mind a little more often when they're making decisions or some planning for the next year and hiring and whatnot. It will creep into their mind and be a part of the discussion, which I think is important.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great segue into talking about some client examples. And I just love the approach that you guys are taking. I think it's why we're so kind of values aligned in how we partner with clients. And I mean, a lot of people call their clients partners. It's not always true, right? But it feels like the model that you have is really coming alongside and working with them towards a common end goal. And that's the approach that we take at OneAccord. And we're working with primarily the late stage business owner, right? So sometimes we'll do some project work, but center of the target for an ideal client profile for us being kind of that late stage business owner that has built something that is established and generating significant amounts of revenue, and they're starting to think about what's next, right? And so what I'd like to get from you guys is just some examples of some client stories that you're comfortable sharing, and obviously don't share details that you don't want on the internet, because that's where this is going. But we talked about a couple specific examples when we did our pre-call. So who wants to jump in with the first one?
I'll take it. So somebody that we've worked with recently, they started out as a tax-only compliance client, and then every once in a while, if they had questions, they give us a ring, and we'd approach it very reactively. We ended up having a check-in with them this summer, and we kind of like to do that with our business clients, Dave and I do, where we really touch base on where they're headed, what opportunities they have coming up or challenges. And he had brought up an opportunity to buy a few more locations. It's an auto body shop, to really just expand his business, but he wasn't sure how financing worked, what the tax impact would be, or even how much money he would need available to get started or to even start considering these acquisitions, or even having an attorney. There's all these things. It was this world that he hadn't stepped into before. And so we started him off on an FP&A style engagement, financial planning and analysis, where we started looking at what if scenarios. Is it more tax efficient to expand this year or next tax year? I mean, December to January could be a huge difference, really, depending on what else is coming along with the business. And so we started going through those steps, and we're looking towards him expanding to 2 more locations in like Q4, Q1 coming up pretty soon here. But the biggest benefit to him was just getting that support from his partner, having a sounding board essentially, so he could freely call us and just ask, what do you think of this? Or, is this a bad idea? And so it really provides them with that peace of mind and just clarity over what their options even are. I think that's what we keep coming back to, is just clarity.
So wait, you don't charge every time they call you like an attorney?
No.
That's important for people to know, right?
It is. I mean, we do, obviously we run a business and have employees too, and he pays a monthly fixed fee, but within that fixed fee of our top tier level, our master plan level, is you get full access to the team without worrying about that 3-minute phone call. Please call me before you're about to buy the red Porsche. I don't care, just call me. And that's one of the benefits, is they have that partner that they can trust and not feel nickel and dimed, honestly.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so we had a couple other ones that we wrote down. I'm pointing at my phone because I use my notes all the time, guys. Don't judge me. But there was another client that was compliance only. Or wait, was that the auto body that went from compliance only to strategic? Okay, so what about the client that was growing through acquisition and strategic planning, though, that we talked about?
Yeah, so this was a little different than the one we talked about, but we had a professional services firm that really got hit. They were niche oriented and got hit really hard during the pandemic. Their niche was impacted significantly. So we were it was more of actually a survival plan. And so we were trying to figure out, how do we get through this? But they had some other areas that they were involved in on a smaller scale. And so we said, why don't we look at mergers and acquisitions within that space? So you can mitigate some of your risk and to diversify a little bit, because you're so centralized in one area, and I think that's risky for the short term and the long term. So we actually started looking at acquisition targets in other spaces. So I was actually calling up brokers and pulling available opportunities in that area for them to potentially look at to acquire.
Okay.
So sometimes it's a proactive
And you didn't know me
opportunity.
yet. That's why you didn't call me.
What's that?
And you didn't know me yet. That's why you didn't call me. Okay. Just want to
That is actually true. But and just looking, putting things in front of them to say, get the wheels turning. Again, it got that wheels turning. Like, okay, is this an option for you to take? Yeah. They didn't actually end up going that route. We were able to figure out some other plan with their niche and what they're doing currently. But I think that gave them peace of mind that there was ways to get through this, right? And to grow. It wasn't just like, let's cut. I mean, sometimes that's a useful strategy, but it's like, maybe we can expand and think forward and do some what if scenarios on acquisitions to get through this.
Yeah. There was one other that we talked about. Do we want to talk about the real estate client?
Yes. So yes, we had a real estate agent come to us and said, look, I'm just kind of at the end of the year, I get my tax return, basically exact scenario as Lera mentioned, and then that's it. And him and his wife got a hold of us and said, we'd love to just kind of have a better understanding of where we're at, because last year, I think it was December 22nd, they got a call that says, be ready to deposit about $60,000.
90.
Was it not? Sorry, $90,000 into the IRS, because you're going to owe a lot more than you had the year before. And a holiday time, they have 2 small kids. It was a big shock.
Yeah.
And that just not knowing for them was enough to say, hey, we want a deeper relationship with our accountant, right? We want those planning services. They don't need the strategic level services for what their portfolio looks like and their jobs, but that proactive approach where it's just understanding where I'm going to be at. And in order to do that, you do need access to the information throughout the year. And so for real estate agents or other small business owners like that, we'll handle the accounting throughout the year so that we know the numbers, and then we can meet with them on a quarterly check-in and say, look, here's where you're going to be. So just that peace of mind. I think a lot of what we try to do is on that real human level provide safety and security for our clients, right? And some of that can be just doing the compliance, right? Like there's safety in knowing I did everything I was supposed to. Then some of it is just, I know where we're at. I feel comfortable because I've received guidance of I just know where we're at on a proactive basis. And then there's others who they really want to expand and grow and move forward, and there's safety in having a partner that's had other clients have done it. We've done it with our own business, so we have experience in that to help them in that area as well.
Yeah. Well, I think that's very much an undervalued service, right? Of just knowing where you're at and not having that fear of the unknown.
Yep.
I don't think people put enough emphasis on that or understand maybe what that unlocks as far as creativity and being able to move forward and grow, because they're maybe subconsciously operating with that fear in the back of their mind of, am I going to get that call on December 22nd and now I owe $90,000 and I wasn't expecting it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's some of that is just the industry. I think some people expect that that's what the industry gives you. It's just, I'm going to know everything ahead of time. That's not really the way for the traditional model works. It really is transactional. You give me the information, I'm going to file your return, and that's that. Some just don't know that that's out there, that those planning services really exist, because they've only worked with the kind of traditional model, or they think it's only some really big, huge accounting firm that's going to be able to offer that. And we're a small business, right? We're locally owned. Lera and I are the only owners, and all our staff are here. And so I think it's for us, we just need to educate clients that there are proactive planning methods that can really give that peace of mind.
The one statement that usually hits home for prospective clients is when I say your tax return should be the output of strategic planning and not a surprise. And not everyone has a lot of opportunity for new deductions and tax efficiency. Like, sometimes there's just not much more that you can do with your financial situation, but what you can do is know what's coming. It won't be a surprise. So even if there is no need to have that master plan level strategic engagement, we can still service those that just need peace of mind and a partner.
Yeah. Well, through doing these videos, I've had the opportunity to meet folks that have very unique service offerings. And I think that I would include you guys there, because I've not yet met somebody else that takes the same approach that you do. And maybe, offering the different levels, right? Like I know some people that do compliance only. I know some people that do strategic planning, but I don't know anybody that handles it exactly the way that you guys do. So that's unique and differentiating. But I always like to learn people's why, right? And so I actually have 2 why questions for you. And why do you guys do it the way that you do? And why don't other people?
Good question. So my why, I love working with business owners. I've owned other businesses. I love tinkering. And so one, it's a way for me to live vicariously through others, because I get to be involved in other business owners' decisions and opportunities and problem solving. And I can do that with so many more clients in the position that I'm in than if I just had my own small owner-operator business. But 2, it's also really important to me that everyone makes the most of what they have if they want to. And so whether that's clarity or just understanding what your opportunities are and getting the support that you need to take advantage of them, it's very fulfilling.
Yeah.
So those are my whys.
Okay.
Yeah, my why is the puzzle of business. I just love it. It is a puzzle in many ways, and I love it for our own business, and then I love to apply things I've learned in other industries and other jobs that I've had and businesses I've owned to our clients as well. So we do have a lot of small business clients, and we get to impact them, which is really fun. And to hear the cool stuff they're doing that are, pretty interesting and wild and fun is really inspiring too. And as far as why others in our industry aren't doing it, I think it's just the industry got built up that way as a compliance first industry. That's how it got started, right? We need somebody to do our taxes. And then I think a lot of people just kind of stayed in that mode of, we're going to work 70 hours a week during busy season, and then, we'll, kind of veg out for a month or two and then get back to it. And it's kind of created this cycle, but that's just what people have known. And I think sometimes accountants can be, not as creative, I guess. So they kind of get in that flow of doing the same thing over and over.
Right.
I think, agreed. It's definitely that hamster wheel of burnout. So you don't really have the time or the energy to start thinking outside of the box or even redeveloping your service line. That takes time and energy, and it's a very thoughtful process. And if you're burnt out from the season, you can't really do it adequately. And also, I think in the traditional model, there will be clients that say they have a great experience with their accountant and they provide them all of the planning that they need, and that's great. That does exist out there. Typically in the traditional model, though, one client receiving that attention is at the expense of another client being underserved. And it's the squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of a scenario where if there's limited energy, the person that asks for it the most is going to get that attention. And then the others are underserved, and it's a really difficult balancing act. And so for us to have specific levels of service with very defined scopes is both a guarantee to the client that you have these resources from us, use it or lose it, use it or don't, it's up to you, but you have that space from us. It's also a protection to ourselves and our team to not be working 70 hours a week, not to be burnt out, and as a result, having that mental energy to think creatively and proactively for the clients that we've promised that to.
And
a bunch of young CPAs just quit their job and they're calling and sending their resumes to you guys.
Can we put our card at the end of this?
Well, I think you will see, the more we've talked to clients and kind of developed our service offerings, this is what they want, right? They want this proactive approach, this strategic approach. And we've spoken at conferences, accounting conferences and whatnot. And I think you're going to see a shift more towards this model, I think, because clients want this. And we're just hoping we're on the forefront of that, right? That we're ahead, and that we keep developing service offerings that are valuable and and ending up creating net worth for our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of putting your card at the end of this, why don't you go ahead and tell people? So first of all, thank you guys so much for coming in and talking about your service offering and how it is different. And I'm kind of secretly hoping that somebody sees this when it goes up on like my LinkedIn or on the YouTube channel, and they're a CPA and they're like, well, hang on a second, I want to come on and set the record straight about my services too, because that's just great for talent acquisition for doing these shoots. So I hope it does stir up some conversation around the model, because I think taxes are something that are probably just not talked about enough in public forum, right? It's like, yeah, I have a guy for that, right? But thank you guys for coming in and talking about the model. And then why don't you go and tell everybody, how can they get in touch with you? Where can they find you and learn more?
So the easiest way really will be to go to the website, accountabilityservices.com. There's a contact us page. I monitor that. So all of our prospective clients or referral partners potentially, you'll get directly in touch with me there. Otherwise, if you'd like to email me personally, it's Lera at accountabilityservices.com. If you can figure out how to spell it, then I will get your email.
Lera.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
It's 4 letters, guys. You can do this.
2 other things to mention. We do have a business owner newsletter that we release every other month. You don't have to be one of our clients to receive it, and there is really good information in there. It's not fluff. A lot of the information in there does relate to some of the advisory services we have, but there are important topics in there. What's the value of having reasonable comp, for example? That's a big question for a lot of business owners. And 2, to book, or if a prospect wanted to book a discovery meeting with me, that's free of charge. It's 30 minutes. I have you start by filling out a tax efficiency questionnaire, and that really helps me learn about what you have going on in the business currently and what your goals are for the future. And then we'll take 30 minutes and talk about it. Even if it doesn't lead to an engagement, I'm sure that some value will be gleaned from that. And so I encourage people to utilize that resource as well.